Hi everyone, I'm Romi Dexter. I'm from Dexter and Integration Glue. Today I'm joined by Benoit. We have the companies Dexter and Integration Glue, which are sister companies. Dexter is a professional services company specializing in digital transformation. HubSpot and Integration Glue.
Integration Glue is tech company doing Python mostly. And we specialize in integrations, data migrations, and we also have our own products on the HubSpot marketplace. Overall, we try to have the best experience for our developers, and we're trying to always improve our DX principles, and it has been a critical part of our today's cadence. So we'll share with you where we are at the moment.
Yeah, on average, we deliver a project every week across both of our companies. So having that developer experience and such a critical aspect, I guess, to how we are able to keep driving that cadence and keep delivering.
I'll start with a bit of my background. So I'm a Python developer. I started Python around 20 years ago after uni. My first job was Django, and I was also cleaning real estate data in Python, a Postgres database of 1.5 million listing in France. At the time, that was definitely big data. Then I moved to the video game industry as a network programmer doing C++ and Python with a framework called Twisted. I moved to New Zealand, worked with Yellow Pages. That was my first kind of corporate experience doing CRM migration. And then Chabord. Chabord is where I met Romi. And together we worked on migration of a monolithic PHP application to a Python microservice Django, and all of Chabord, until was actually all built in Django. After that, I created a small dev agencies with a few devs and worked with a lot of companies. And at the same time, Romi started Hypen.
Yeah. And so I'm not a developer, but I've been working in this industry for close to 25 years. And I've led a lot of development teams. I guess something I'm really passionate about is really bringing together the technology and business aspects to deliver value every day. But first up, what is developer experience or DX?
So we were looking for developer experience, a definition. It's actually really hard to find a definition. And we created our own. And then a month ago, GitHub released on a blog post with the formula of developer experience. And the formula is productivity plus impact plus satisfaction to the power of collaboration. And actually really resonated with us. So we just copy-pasted it. The developer productivity is really writing 2 lines of code is very simple. You may have a very simple function to do, but if you don't know where to start, where to put those 2 lines, it can take you hours to actually write 2 lines of code. So productivity for us is not the number of lines like some people said in an earlier talk. It's really about just where to start and how fast can you write those 2 lines if you know exactly what you have to do. Developer impact, for us, it's really about release to production and not having a million gates and ticking boxes, sending a fax to somebody to release to production. Or release to production should be easy. A developer should be able to do it whenever he needs and without his manager approval, as long as we have the correct gates in place. We'll talk about this later. And satisfaction, developer satisfaction is a really difficult topic, and you need to measure it. You need to have the right tools, the right processes in place so you can know where you're at and improve your developer satisfaction. And all of this means nothing if in your company you don't have collaboration. If everything is silo, nothing is going to work.
Yeah, and I guess with DX, it's all about the power of collaboration, And it's probably one of the biggest challenges I see when I go into a lot of organizations. You see a lot of silos sitting, not only, with different teams not talking to each other, but even within teams, people not talking to each other. I've gone into organizations where the developers are working exactly the same piece of code or the same functionality separately, not even speaking to each other, doubling up on work. huge amount of pain. I've worked, with a lot of organisations where the tech team or the development team are actively not speaking to the rest of the business because they don't want changes or they don't actually want that feedback. Collaboration is just such a critical aspect to make sure that, you're constantly working together and improving and enhancing what you're doing. There's a lot of agile frameworks to facilitate that collaboration, and those are great. But I think, if you do think you're in an organisation where you've got these kind of silos occurring, number one, I would say workshop it with your team. Find out and figure out why. Why are people actually not talking to each other? Because it's generally going to be some underlying kind of aspect. It could be fear, it could be ego, it could be all sorts of different items that means that people aren't talking to each other. But if you can ensure that people are discussing things, if they are talking about things, if you've got the processes to hand off to each other and to make sure that you've always got those different gates where you can encourage that collaboration, it's going to make a big difference to actually enabling it. I guess another aspect of collaboration is really about seeking diverse ideas. So the panel, before Samantha, they had, some great comments around why it's so important to have diversity, within your organisation. But also too, even if you do have that diversity within your organisation, but you don't have the channels for each other to talk and to speak and to come up with these great creative ideas, then you're losing out on so much opportunity there.
So we'll talk about a bit how to measure the X, because the first thing is to know where you're at. It's a topic where every company is going to be different, so I don't have the perfect formula like GitHub. You'll have to pick from a few ideas I gave you that you can implement probably in your organization. For us, onboarding time is one metric we look at. So when we have a new developer coming, that is junior or a senior, on his first day, we really would like him to be able to push to production within 4 hours. So his first half day, it would be to do a trivial change in the code base and be able to push it to prod in his first morning. This will empower him for the future to make sure that he knows that even on his first day, he pushed to production. So later down the track, it's not a big deal. Documentation coverage is also very important. So reaching 80% of functions, Python functions, but also general processes, having the 80-20 rule, where 80% needs to be basically documented and not spend double or triple the amount of time for the last remaining bits, is what we aim for as well in terms of document coverage. And deployment frequency, that's also like next to onboarding time. If you don't have a good deployment frequency, you won't have a good onboarding time. So deployment frequency, 8 times a day is pretty standard for us. But the problem is we're working with other organizations. We're working with corporates, and some of them have a 3 months release cycle. That is very difficult for us to deal with because we basically have to go to staging, then they do 4 weeks of testing, and then they go to prod, and then they start a new cycle. For 2 months, you can do push code, and then you go to staging, another 4 weeks of testing, and then you go to prod. That's why every organization is different, and they should have a different metric on their side. Other ways to measure the X or what to measure would be your tool set. Like we heard at the previous one, great tools that you should use in Python. Like do an audit every year of your tooling. Look at what is in the market. Is this what is normal? Is it best in breed, or is there better tools? Hardware, don't underestimate the importance of hardware for the developers. Having a good chair, having a headphone with like noise cancelling, having enough RAM on the machine, all those things will really help with developer satisfaction. Having a good feedback loop, like can the developers work on their local machine without having to wait 10 minutes to see a change? Are they part of a community? Are they going to conferences? Like we have most of our devs here because it's really important to be part of the community. Do you do surveys? Do you ask your developers actually what they think? We talked about it during the previous talk around you need to ask the people what they think rather than assuming what you think they think. Time to change. How long does it take for a change to be deployed? Naming conventions, do they make sense? Knowledge base, do you have a place where people can write up their knowledge and the day they leave, they don't leave with all of their knowledge? All of this are metrics you can measure, and you should probably have a think, where am I at with this? This is just an example of a survey you could send to your devs on exactly what we said earlier, like to measure some of it. Rate from 1 to 5. Do you have access to the right tool to do your job? Do you feel that you have an impact and producing value? Are you still learning stuff? Do you feel that you have a work-life balance that is reasonable? How good is your relationship with your team members or even your manager? How good is your relationship with the rest of the business? Like we said earlier, developers in some organizations are, in the dungeon. They don't really talk to the rest of the business. Are the processes in place to collaborate with the other departments adequate? And if they are, do you know them? Maybe there are some processes, but you don't even know they exist. Would you recommend your company as a great company to work with? This is a very important question, because if somebody says no, then you should probably dig deeper. Like, why would you not recommend working here? There is something wrong. And then using this survey, you can do one-on-ones. You can open up for discussion, but the developer needs to feel like it's a safe place to put a 1-star rating. It's like Google. If you put a one-star rating, sometimes the restaurant owner is really unhappy. You get a 1-star rating and doesn't want to hear about it. So the first step is really to make yourself vulnerable as a manager or as a company to allow for this feedback to come in.
Yeah, funnily enough, I actually used to work for APN or NZME before they moved. The technology team was literally in the dungeon. So that's where they kept us all. So making it easier for juniors, this is absolutely critical. So number one, having an induction process. So a lot of people have induction processes, but they maybe are not structured in the same way. We treat our induction process at the same level as we would treat a project. So when you first start, you get all of the good comms and you get a buddy and you get all of those kind of standard things. But you also get a number of different tasks that are curated specifically for your role. So if developer coming in, then the focus should be around a number of smaller projects where they get to try a number of the standard methods, where they get to learn a lot of our standards and implement those over time, so they can kind of grow those skills, but also to that so they can succeed quite quickly. Also to ensuring that specific projects are aligned with them so that they're working on simpler, more repetitive, well-documented kind of processes and projects to kind of get started. Second is the knowledge base. So the knowledge base, again, shouldn't be about your code standards and that type of thing. That should be taken care of by some of the DevOps things that Benoit will chat about later. But it's more about actually how your processes work with the broader organization. If you're in a project environment delivering for clients, how that all kind of works together. I see, a lot of people kind of take quite a while to build a knowledge base. One top tip for Hype and Dexter, we have never set out to create a knowledge base ever, but yet we have 600 articles which are also read and updated regularly, so they're not out of date and just kind of becoming rubbish there or noise there. The way that we did that was just we found that people were sending a lot of emails with processes, which of course just disappears as soon as that email's been sent. So we just have a rule within our organization. If you have a new process, if you have a new standard, if you have a new guideline, document it first in the knowledge base, then send an email out to everyone linking to the knowledge base. That just means that organically your knowledge base grows. Also too, our knowledge base is completely open. We really encourage anybody new, anybody leaving, anybody at any time, if they see an error, fix it. If they see something's missing, add it. So we're always updating, and that means that our knowledge base is actually accurate and up to date a lot of the time. We also make a lot of our articles public, or public at least to our clients. So that just means that we're maintaining one central place of information for everyone. Highlighting how to ask for help. So this sounds really, really basic, but I've found with, a lot of new people, especially juniors, when they come in, they will come in and they won't know when to ask for help. So they'll either drive you mad by asking every half an hour about how to do everything, or they won't ask at all because they're scared that, they should know this. Sitting down and actually just setting those parameters with them to go, hey, this is where you go for help. And if you've got something that's quite urgent and got quite a tight timeline, then spend an hour or whatever that may be to try and figure it out by yourself. And then if you still haven't got it, then come back. Then they'll come back. If you kind of set those parameters, it just means that people won't be sitting there feeling like they're failing or not getting through the work, and they can and they'll know when to ask for help, but they'll also know when to actually try and figure it out themselves, which is a great learning opportunity in itself. Automated guardrails, we'll let Benoit go over all of that great DevOps. And then also learning about the business, again, getting rid of those silos and understanding how everybody is operating and working is a really important aspect. So shadowing is probably one of the nicest and easiest ways that you can help your new people understand how the rest of the business works. Get them to go to client kickoffs, get them to go to training sessions, get them to go and be a support person, even if they're just taking minutes and actions. That helps them actively understand where and how they can operate with the rest of the business. From a feature set, 60% of features in software products are really used or never used. This kind of really goes to simplicity. When we're looking at building out our products and how we kind of operate, we really want to try and keep aspects of what we do simple. Now, there's all of the simplicity from a code perspective, but from a business perspective, I think really ensuring that we have clear goals and product principles, making sure that we have value prioritized, and that's always at the heart to get rid of those pet projects and things that maybe other people really want to do, or it's this fantastic idea but maybe doesn't have a place in the market right now. The 80-20 rule, of course. Neutralizing the noise. I don't know how many of you have ever had a CEO kind of come in, we call them seagulls, and change things mid-sprint or mid-development cycle. It creates a lot of noise. It creates a lot of additional complexity. So neutralizing the noise by ensuring that the right people are empowered to represent everyone, and that people also are empowered to push back when it's going to have a negative impact on the rest of the work. And then that continuous refinement and improvement of what you're doing. See?
So the first thing we need to realize is that there are two types of standards. So in order to get alignment, you need standards. But there is my standards versus your standards, or the team standard. So the problem with my standards is it's only mine. And if it's not the team ones, then it's going to be inconsistent. It's going to be hard to collaborate because maybe we want 2 new lines after each function, but maybe my colleague wants 3. It's personal, and there is some kind of hard to scale part of it because you don't really have a way to collaborate on it. It's hard to maintain. Like when you have standards and it's yours, it's not explicit. Nobody knows, but what exactly is your standard? It takes long time to review because it's less readable. It means that you read the code of somebody else, you have to adapt to their standard, and it's not yours. It's also it allows somehow a fast innovation, and people would say, oh yeah, but if I do it my way, it's faster. It's true, but being faster doesn't mean always being better. Faster innovation is just good for proof of concept. We should never push this to prod. You should always take the time to refactor it. And most of all, there is an element of conflict and ego in my standards. It's mine, and it means that if you're going to hurt my feelings if you say that's not the way to go, or if I tell you, I need actually 4 spaces, no tabs, that can hurt people. So the team standard, on the other hand, is to make things consistent, to enable the collaboration between the people, to be efficient at scale, and it improves the quality and the maintenance. The reviews should be quick. Doing a pull request review should not be a hard job. It should be a small change and quickly change it. it structured the innovation. So it means that instead of having fast innovation, we have a way to innovate, but everybody can participate in the innovation. And at the end, it's all to be aligned. If you're aligned, you're going to be more consistent. You're going to have a better experience as a developer because you can read another developer's work. So I'd like to present a few tools. I mean, those tools we talked about earlier this morning, and they are becoming the gold standard of Python of this year. Next year, we may see something else. For example, in the linters, there is RAF. A year ago, I'm not even sure this project existed. So I was using PEP8 as the linter, or PyLint, I don't remember. But the point is, you should always look for new standards or better ways to improve your DX. RAF is just better. It's just faster. It has more rules. It's just better than the others. So we switch very quickly to it. We also use PyWrite for all of the typing, post-typing on every single function. And we make sure that the return value is typed as well. This really, really helped us to be more productive because now it's somehow part of the documentation. Types, like we saw there earlier, is something that presents context with your function. And instead of typing a big, long description of your function, sometimes just having types makes it even more readable than a big, long description. Formatting, the 3 spaces, the 3 new lines. Now, all of this, you don't want any feelings in this. You want a computer to do it for you, so you don't have to think about it. There is no ego. It's just, that's what was chosen, and you just run black, and that's it. RAF also has some other formatting options. For example, import sorting. Why would you want to sort your imports? It's a bit silly to do them in alphabetical order. It's actually for Git conflicts. It means that when you add a new module in your file and another person add another module, they will always be aligned in the order because of auto-formatting of alphabetical order. It seems a small thing, but it's one less conflict to fix in your code. Testing, it's super important. PyTest, we use it extensively. We try to reach 95% code coverage on our code base. Sometimes we start with 50 and we just ramp up over time. We use coverage.py to look at the code coverage, and we use CodeCov, but I'm not super happy with it at the moment, so we may replace it with something else. The reason why it's hard for us to use CodeCov is we use a monorepo. So all of our projects of all our clients are in one Git repo. The reason for this is if we refactor one of our core function and we run PyWrite, we change an argument type, we add a new argument to a function in the core, the linter will pick it up instantly and will tell us, oh, this project is using the function and is sending this. You need to refactor it at the same time. So we're 100% sure that when we change a function, we can refactor it all the way in all of the clients. Even if it's a project that is 2 years old but still active, we will redeploy it at this moment. You'll see later that we actually redeploy every project on a quarterly basis to force us to make sure that we are never falling too much behind. CI/CD, we use GitHub Actions very heavily. We use this for pull requests to make sure that all of the tools above are actually running, and we prevent the merge of a pull request if it's not right. And at the same time, we use this for deployment as well. Every time we commit to main, or every time we merge a pull request to main, this is auto-deployed to staging. Then we have a prod branch, and we create a pull request from main to prod, and this goes to prod. Anybody in the company can do it. You just need to have another review to be able to merge the pull request. The person reviewing the code is basically sharing the responsibility as much as the person writing the code. And it's a team effort. Like, we're a team. If something fucks up, we're all going to fix it. We don't want to just say, oh, it's this guy that wrote this code. No, what is important is how do we fix the problem? And then later we can say, how can we prevent this from happening again? But it's really a shift of mentality to not point finger, but really just to make people like do the right thing, which is to move forward. Monitoring, code reviews, sorry. We use GitHub. Obviously, with GitHub Actions, it makes sense to have everything in one place. And code reviews, when it's a junior, what we like to do is to like spend some time in a one-on-one conversation to do the review, not just, can you please review, and just put a few messages. It's a good moment to share the knowledge from a senior to a junior. It's a good moment for a junior to learn the new process, the new things. So instead of just putting a message like, no, that's wrong, or you should do it this way, like spend some time talking. It's a good occasion to talk to people and spend time together to do a review. Monitoring. We use Sentry very heavily as well. It's well known in the Python community, and it's awesome. Like the number of errors we're getting through it, and we can fix before the client even tells us that there is a problem. It's just incredible. Like if I go back 10 years ago, you had to have your own logging and set up your own alerting, and it was a pain. Now it's really easy to know when there is an error, and you can really aim for a zero error policy where every time you have an error, you fix it. If it's not a real error, if it's just it should be a warning rather than an error, then you fix it as well. You change this line of code to be a warning rather than an error. Infrastructure, we just don't want to host our own stuff on our own servers, and we use Google Cloud very heavily, but we try to be also in a way we can cater for change. So Google Cloud, we use containers on Cloud Run and BigQuery, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is just glue in between the different components. Project management, use ClickUp and Google Doc. So ClickUp is our project management software that the rest of the business is using. That's where we have tasks and what we need to do. And Google Docs, that's where we put our processes, our briefs. A big part of the issue we had with developers was to have them have a good brief from the business. So we created templates in Google Doc, and now the business can go in a client meeting and they fill an entire Google Doc, and we collaborate with the business on all those points to make sure that we know exactly, is this a XML API? Is it a JSON API? Is it real time? Is it batch? And all those questions, the business doesn't know about them. So we have to create a boilerplate of those are the things you need to ask. And we go with them in the meeting and we try to uncover. Sometimes you don't have the correct stakeholders in front of you, so you need to reschedule one. That at least you have a list of questions that needs to be answered. So this is just a screenshot for those that don't know how linting can change very quickly how something looks like. On the left, you have the same code, exactly the same code, and on the right, or nearly the same. And it's just auto-refactored. And because we have the types in, there are like maybe a few typos, and then you realize very quickly that with the red things, oh, I made a typo. And instead of pushing this code and having a like null error, you actually can fix it before it even goes to prod. But because we run a RAF and we run Pyrite and all those tools on GitHub as well, if for whatever reason the developer forgets to run those linters, it's going to be picked up by the pull requests. And because it's the exact same thing that is running on the person machine, they can fix it before even pushing it to the pull request. Here you can see that we use GitHub Actions and GitHub pull requests with gates, automatic gates. I don't want to tell people to do something. I prefer the machine to do it. So like review is required. This cannot be merged. I mean, I can merge it because I'm super admin, so I can check this box saying merge without the requirements. But everybody else doesn't have the choice. They have to get a review from somebody else. Even if it's a junior, it's fine, but that's part of the trust with the developers. That's the code cover report. So increasing the code coverage is super important. So you need to show it. You need to know where you're at with your code. And here we reached the 50% mark with this pull request. That's great, but we should aim for those 90+%. One thing that really helped us is to create our own CLI. So we spend a bit of time packaging all those tools, all those things. And instead of having to remember exactly what is the CLI, you need to type rough dot dash dash fix or all pyrite, and it's a different syntax. We just created a CLI using Typer to wrap this together. And now the only thing we need to do is Python CLI test. This will run PyTest, will run the coverage, will open up a HTML browser with your current coverage, and you're good to go. We run the same thing for CLI lint, and it will run all the linters with the correct configuration for everybody the same way. And the last part that really made a difference for us to go to production quicker is we created a cookie cutter. So most of our projects, HubSpot apps, they have a lot of boilerplate that is very common, but we have to have it in the code. And those things will have some security requirements, how to handle the security keys from HubSpot, how to read some environment variables, how to configure some other things. And we're using Cookie Cutter to generate the boilerplate of an app. It was taking us 20 hours to have an app ready for the marketplace. It's now less than an hour. We basically use the CLI to generate all of the code. So the CLI will ask questions. What is this for? Where do you want to host it? Is this type of app? Do you need an iframe? Do you need to have a sidecar? Is it a workflow action? And depending on the answers, it will generate the boilerplate that is required. All of those are using Fast API. And behind the scene, we have like our routers, our middlewares, all of these that are common for all of the clients. So we're sure that they're all in the same kind of space in terms of security and in terms of features.
So I guess the other aspect is designing for change. I guess everybody really, really hates it where client gives you requirements or whoever gives you requirements. They sign off on it, you build it, and then they come back with a million little changes. But, unfortunately, it's just the reality of what we're working in. Also, too, I guess if you think about it, we want to give people the ability to change easily because what they envision and what they think the experience is going to be like is not necessarily what it's going to be like when you start to execute. So ensuring that we're always designing throughout the project to allow for change during the project and to have that agility, but also too for all of the potential changes, enhancements, and I guess that roadmap that will start to drive post cutover is really, really key.
So how you do change? Basically, everything we talked about will help you to have a software you can change. You need great documentation to know where you are at and how you can change things. Maybe the dev that worked on the project doesn't work for you anymore and it's somebody else. If you don't have documentation, it's going to be very hard to support this client. You need to upgrade often. Like I said earlier, every quarter, we republish every one of our app, even if we have no functional change, just for the sake of making sure that we can redeploy it. So the day we need to change something, it's a maximum of 3 months old, and we are not suddenly having 1 million linting issues because of new rules or a new version of which library or whatever. So we upgrade all the libraries and everything on a quarterly basis on all the apps. You create abstraction over time. Like I said, we have our own middlewares, our own HubSpot client, and all of those things make our dev faster. And then documentation of those ones make them also even faster because they can actually write only 2 lines of code to do something pretty complex behind the scene. And testing. If you don't have any code coverage, then you're really not confident you can redeploy your app, and maybe you have 20 clients using it. Are you going to break it? Yeah, if you have testing, you're pretty confident you can actually release, even if you upgrade the Python version from 3.11 to 3.12. And that's awesome to be able to be confident to use all those apps quite often.
So when we started, we started Hype and Dexter just over 5 years ago. And in that time, we went from 2 people to over 50 people. Now, for any of you who have worked in more professional services industries, that's pretty challenging to do because you're so reliant on humans, on the quality of how they present themselves, on the quality of their knowledge of the systems that you're using, that you get you've got such a huge dependency on that, and it's not always easy to scale people. It's kind of easy to scale products and services often, but not always people. So, we've been really good at it though. We put in really, really strong processes. We've put in really strong structured kind of products that people can grow up with as they kind of implement it. But I guess as we have scaled as a business, our clients have also started to scale. So we went from like a lot of startups and kind of small organizations to just delivering the largest enterprise global client for HubSpot ever in history out of New Zealand. By the way, with a team that was over 50% women, which is pretty unusual for that kind of space. But with these big, big clients comes a lot of complexity. So we were getting to a point where we were outsourcing a lot. We were getting to a point where we were doing lots of little point solutions, which was increasing the risk. And I don't like risk. So it was increasing the risk for how we could host and manage and maintain these things. It was making it very hard for us to maintain and scale those particular services. So at the time, about a year ago, we approached Benoit and kind of went, hey man, we think there's something here. We think we need to kind of build out this platform, this framework where we can actually do custom integrations, where we can augment and enhance these existing tools and the giants that are out there to fill these gaps and to really bring together these different platforms into one kind of central view to meet the requirements of these large enterprise clients. And it's worked, we thought we'd kind of come out with it with a bit of a build it and they would come, and they did a lot. So almost every single customer now uses an aspect of integration glue from Hype and Dexter. But what we have started to see more recently is that because it is so service driven and because we have had that aspect, but we're also trying to build a solid product, that when you're doing that kind of ad hoc response to client needs, you can really go in a lot of different directions. You can also too, because you're trying to make it work for people, go in slightly hacky directions. It's like, oh, we'll just do this to make this thing work. And again, from a risk perspective, that's not something that we really want to do when we're talking with big enterprise customers with multi-billion kind of organizations globally who have all of this legislation that we need to live within. We want to make sure that we don't, go down those directions. And so it was really important to us to start to bring together integration glue, vision, mission, and product principles. So we had that guiding kind of light for everybody to kind of work with.
So we came up with this vision and this mission, and it's only a few sentences, but it took us nearly a year of thinking to go there, because this is what we want the developers, but also how we want the world to see this company. And so the vision is to help humans to work on what matters, because at the end what we do is just tech, but the tech means nothing if it's not for humans to do their job or their work or improve. And our mission is really to connect and automate all of the bullshit, so globally the people can focus on what matters. And that's also showing our dedication to really automate everything we can, so people spend the time where it really matters. If you don't have a vision and a mission statement, you should do one, if it's in your company, but also if it's in your team. So as a team or even as an individual, you should have a mission and a vision, because every time you do something, you can just say, is it aligned with my vision? Is it part of my mission? And if it's not, why am I doing it? And do I need to change my mission or what? And it's just a very simple way to know that you're on track and not go off track.
On our product principles, so lots of words that sit behind these, but focus on simplicity in every aspect. And I guess, we have lost the screen. No, there we go, cool. So that's on every aspect. So yes, from a coding perspective, but also too with how we communicate to clients, how we work with our internal teams. Everything we want to make sure is very, very simple. That every part is self-sustainable. So this is a big one because I've seen so many products where you built this new feature and you think it's going to change the world, and then nobody buys it, nobody really uses it, and then people, but because you've invested so much that you just keep kind of keeping it there, and it's still costing you money. It's costing you money to maintain. It's costing you money to support. So we really want to make sure that we don't build things that don't have an immediate value, or a value once we launch them. But also too that we fail fast. If it's not working, we get rid of it, and that we build that in right from the get-go with our design. We are the glue, not the materials. So this is something very specific for integration glue. We augment and we enhance. We're not building new platforms. So as much as possible, we want to try and stay within the native platforms that people know. We want to enhance and fill those gaps. We want to make them better. We want to connect things so people aren't having to copy and paste or export and import stuff. We want to connect all of those aspects, but we don't want to replace any of these things necessarily. We are guides, so in every aspect that we do, we want our software to be easy to use. We want it to be native. We want it to be self-explanatory. And we want to be secure by design.
So if you have one thing to take from this talk, it's probably you should do your vision, your mission, and your product principles if you don't have some. If you think your company has some, have a look at them. Make sure it's still relevant, that they were not created 20 years ago and nobody reviewed them. And we've created basically a PDF that is what we used as a base to create ours. And if you don't have them and you want to basically try to create this with your team, or even you as a contractor, individual dev, or with your group of students at uni, you can go check it out. It will give you the clues on how to create a good vision statement, mission statement, and good product principle. It's using just a lot of reference we've gathered about different brands in the world and what is their vision and mission, and trying to understand how you can do yours.